Welcome everyone to the Savision webinar. Your hosts will be Rob Doucette and myself, Justin Borgter. Rob, are you there, sir?
I am. Thanks, Justin. Welcome everyone. Thanks for joining today. We have an exciting new product that we'd like to share with you today, Savision IQ, which we feel will help put your IT in focus. So let's jump into it.
Before we get started on the dive on that one, just so that everyone knows, we are recording this. This will become available for you afterwards. If you do have any questions, please use the question bar. The crew are standing by to answer them as soon as possible. So Rob, go ahead.
Thanks, Justin. So just a quick overview on the agenda today. We'll spend just a few minutes introducing the company, Savision, as well as the product, Savision IQ. And then we'll jump right into 4 demo scenarios. To unify IT data, search and analyze, automate incident workflows, and share business insights. So I have a few slides, and then I'll pass to Justin. He'll show a live demonstration reinforcing each of those scenarios. So will be a lot of demos going on in this webinar, and then we'll wrap it up with some Q&A and some additional information. So from a company perspective, for anyone who is on the call that may not know of Savision, we have been around for quite some time, about a decade of experience in the IT ops and analytics space. We're known as a market leader in the Microsoft System Center space, specifically with dashboards and business service modeling. We have a global presence and over 900 active customers representing many different market segments and different sizes of organizations. And throughout this experience and engagement with these customers has come about the building of this product that we're presenting today. So introducing Savision IQ. So through those conversations that I mentioned with many of these organizations that we speak with, we've seen a need for a layer to sit on top of IT operational tools. So we hear from organizations that many tools are in place. There's very little integration or cooperation between those tools, and a lot of troubleshooting scenarios are faced with chasing different tools to find all the data they need to solve a problem. So we came up with the idea of Savision IQ, which sits as a smart layer on top of your IT tools, on top of your IT monitoring tools, as well as your service management tools, to provide all of that data in one pane of glass. We unify all that data and make it very easy to search, something you'll see in the demo in just a few minutes. And then we help stream workflows from all the events or alerts that may be occurring in the underlying monitoring systems up into more smart and consolidated tickets in the ITSM or help desk world. So the first scenario I'd like to talk about is just that unification of data into a single pane of glass. So this is something that a lot of organizations are struggling with. Perhaps they have something cobbled together with alerts or events, but to get a true single pane of glass that people can rely on for live operational data and share within your organization is still not something that's implemented in many organizations. So I have a few metrics here. So we performed an in-depth survey at Microsoft Ignite at the end of September. And so we have some data we'd like to share here with you. So we have seen that almost half of our survey respondents indicated that a lack of a single pane of glass was their largest pain point in their IT department. And that goes hand in hand with, on average, 5 to 50 tools are needed within an IT department to function. So you can imagine that even at 5, let alone 50 tools, it can become difficult to get all the information that you need in one place. As you would expect, this is kind of in line with where IT organizations are planning to spend money. So a little over a quarter of all respondents indicated that creating this holistic view is a top priority for their IT department. And again, as I mentioned, to reinforce the number of tools, when you're getting to the troubleshooting or responding to an issue, if you're having to go through 15 tools to solve the problem, that's going to introduce a lot of extra work and latency while that problem is occurring in the environment. So let's jump into the first demo scenario, which is where we help unify information. So centralizing all your IT operational data into a single pane of glass. Make sure that everyone's looking at the same data, and so when you're communicating about the issue, it's not a matter of, well, my tool shows this and another tool shows that. You have the same data and can make reliable decisions based on that data. So let's I'll pass the baton over to Justin and show how he can demonstrate within IQ how IQ can help provide that single pane of glass and make sure that your IT experts have the same view of that data.
Right, thank you, Rob. So I'm going to make myself presenter. Hopefully that goes well. If you just give me a heads up. Rob, if you can see my screen.
I can see your screen.
All right, then I'm going to assume that a lot of our attendees can see it as well. So what you're looking at the moment is a IQ web front end, the IIS that we've got open out to the world at the moment. It's from my support lab. This is the administration pane, and the first scenario that we're going to look at is how to get your data sources of information together. As you can see, we work with a system called integrations, which are quite simply connectors that connect up our database to start pulling data from your target sources. I have a couple up and running here at the moment. As you can see, 3 SCOMs, System Center Operations Manager running, Amazon Web Service and Azure, and a ServiceNow instance. Keep in mind the data sources don't have to be monitoring tools. In fact, let me show you some of the ones that we already have packaged with it in our connections. You'll notice that we also do service managing tools and CMDB tools, ticketing their systems. So Avanti and ServiceNow are used primarily not to monitor, but to establish the tickets and customer satisfaction of the service delivery. Adding a system is quite simple. Here are integrations at the moment. So picking the system that works in your system. So let me take System Center Operations Manager because I've got a couple. I'm pretty experienced with that one. Quite simply filling in the fields, so the target of your management server, making sure that the location that IQ is in can talk to it, a username and password. Any profile is allowed in here. A URL, which is not compulsory, but does allow another feature that we'll show shortly for you to navigate down into your underlying system. Obviously a discovery interval. Some systems are more important than others, and giving the connection a name so that you know which one it is. Once you're up and running with that, pressing save puts the system in here and then immediately starts pouring the data in from the system. So as you can see, here's the one I have at the moment with its regular intervals connected to my demo environment for other product live maps running on top of SCOM, hence the live maps reference in here. Once that's hooked up, it starts pouring all of the data into the data source within IQ. And that will happen automatically. These numbers will grow as your data sources connect and refresh, and as those data sources discover new objects and components. You don't have to do anything with it. If you ever disconnect the system, then they automatically start filtering out of the system in IQ. Back to Rob.
Yeah, sorry, if you could bring up the poll, Justin. So attendees, you should be prompted in a second about your intentions in terms of integrating IT ops data into a single pane of glass. So if you can just take a moment and answer that for us, that'd be appreciated.
And perfect. So I'll close that poll down. I think we got most of the votes in.
Great, thanks everyone. So we haven't shown exactly what the benefit yet is. So we've seen how easy it is to create an integration that Justin just showed. We get a single console that's summarizing all the computers and alerts and incidents. So all that data is being normalized into a common set of data, regardless of where it came from. So, for example, an alert that comes from a Microsoft system could be quite a bit different from an alert that comes from VMware or from AWS. Yet Savision IQ is able to automatically normalize all that data so that you can have one view into all of your alerts, regardless of where they came from. And where we want to show next is how you can search and analyze that data in very interesting ways. So again, from our survey at Microsoft Ignite, we have a few metrics I'd like to share with you here. About a third of the respondents indicated that their monitoring infrastructures are just too noisy. So typically meaning that there's a lot of alerts being generated. They're not sure which alerts are critical, which alerts are just noise. And they have no way to associate that with anything that is a business impact. The amount of time that it takes to respond to an incident is not going down, and the cost is going up. So being able to find things very easily and quickly is a very cost-efficient issue at this point. So we're going to get into how, with Savision IQ, we can easily identify, find things, resolve outages, and using our backend is based on Elasticsearch, which provides a very powerful natural language search based on all that IT operational data. So I'll hand the baton back to Justin, and we have two scenarios here that we're gonna run through. So the first scenario is really something that we hear our customers face a lot, where someone's complaining about a slow device or a slow computer. They get a call saying, you know, server 123 is not performing well. Can someone take a look at it, without knowing where that machine might be monitored by which tool? And then the second part is getting in more to with alerts that perhaps an alert has already occurred in the past, and you want to double check again that you think the same thing is happening again. So you have some string patterns that you want to look for, failed to access or network unavailable, something like that, and how IQ can help you find those issues very quickly. So back to you, Justin.
Right, so back to the screen that we had once we've connected all the systems up. Now keep in mind that I've connected a couple of systems in here, so it's not just computers or infrastructure areas. There are also components coming in from other sources. So you can very quickly navigate through this. Now there is a filtering system that you can quite literally just narrow it down to a specific hookup that you have at the moment. And just search in those components, which will apply the filters to whatever tab you're looking at, so the computers, the alerts, the incidents, or the components tab. You can also apply a type based on the tab. So under components, we have a few more types like websites, services, and objects. So you can really narrow down what you're looking for. Alternatively, you can run straight into the search bar, the Google-esque search bar, where you can type in any computer name, any component name, any search term that you're looking for to get to the data you want. So as you can see there, I just basically Google searched all of the 6 or 7 integrations that I have hooked up for anything that has a word domain in it. And naturally, IQ then fishes out 4 computers for me. These 2 are sitting on one of my SCOMs, and this is sitting on another SCOM. Based by the name of the convention, I know that. You know, you guys will know your systems environments even easier. It's fished out 31 alerts that respond to a domain, and 31 components with the word domain in it. Now these are various health states, so obviously I can apply the filter to get to the ones that I'm really interested in right now if people are warning me. So this domain controller has a problem, or this computer here has a problem. If I apply the states, obviously with 4 computers it's a little bit easier for me to spot. So that's the one I'm really looking for. I can click on it, get the raw data from it, so which computer is it, just make sure it's the right one, find out why IQ has brought it to my attention, which is highlighted by you, and actually dive into the data around that component. So here at the computer level, I don't see anything that's really interesting for me. There's no alerts or incidents open to it. It's just its health state is red. Going back to the search, I can go and pick the domain controller. So let's grab the object for it. I'll take a computer name, because I know I've got a domain controller object called host1. Hit enter on that one, and again I get to go to this object. This object's got 9 open alerts, which I can open up, have a look at the object itself, have a look at the alerts from the systems that are pumping them out. So right now all of these are coming from SCOM. Actually physically read what the alert details are, find out what my team is telling me about, tell them that this could be linked, or this is, you know, this monitoring system is telling me this, another monitoring system is telling me that about the same object. So immediately I can dive straight to the components I want. If I share this, or I want to go and investigate a little bit more about this object, that's where that link on the connector comes in, where we can actually drill you down right down to the source. And in this case, being live maps hooked up to SCOM, I can literally go and find the actual demo host and go and get the true details from the monitoring platform itself. So I can see the alerts that IQ was telling me about, I can see the performance metrics, and I can see whatever else I need to see from the monitoring platform. I think that covered the scenario 1 with it. Scenario 2 is obviously when we're looking at the alerts. Correct me if I'm wrong, Rob. Looking at the historical events, saving these for scenario 2. So if you're really interested in host 1 or a specific combination, so you want to know your SQL servers and their current health states or any incidents or alerts against them, and have that constantly available for you so that you don't have to search for a specific level every time. Let me pop the filter off. So let's say I want SQL 2014 and 2008 only, because I'm really interested in that. I can thin down the alerts just down to the components that I'm interested in, and if I want to see that as constantly every morning when I come in for my morning triage, I can save that search, which quite literally just gives me a search to save against. I got one already. SQL 2014. That search then goes into a saved modus, which is saved in our favorites. As you can see, I've got a couple here. The product actually does come with quite a few themselves straight away out of the box, so you can start looking at exceptions and errors, critical alerts in the last 24 hours, critical computers, so you can look at it from alert and a computer area. They become available for you to instantly apply. So if I want to see critical websites, I just click on that and I get that search, which is all my websites in components and their critical state applied straight away. And that will pop for anything else I'm interested in. So the ping failures, which is a search against alerts. So any alert with the term ping failure in it will show up in this one. And those become available for you to use regularly at any status. These favorites do mark the current health, so if these do change, these numbers do move up and down. So you're able to see the actual results of this query as and per when we refresh against your systems. So there's the test one is constantly adding new data and removing data from this all the time as new computers get added and data gets removed. I think that covered the scenarios, Rob, unless I missed anything.
No, that's great. So the next phase will kind of continue along. I will add that from that alerts view as well, Justin could take action and resolve those alerts directly from our console. So he could select any number of alerts that span those systems. So for instance, it could be a bunch of things from Amazon Web Services and SCOM and another system. And we're able to resolve those as one action and take care of cleaning that up. And that kind of is a great task directly from the monitoring space. But I think what we'll do here now is I'll jump back to the slides and talk about the next scenario, which gets into automating incident workflows. So I mentioned earlier how many organizations are complaining that the monitoring infrastructure is just too noisy. And at the same time, there's a need to consolidate this information on the ITSM side or the ticketing side. So a lot of IT teams are centralized around that help desk or ticket interface, and so information from the monitoring systems needs to flow into those systems. However, if your monitoring infrastructure is noisy and generating a ton of alerts that aren't very useful, pumping them all into your ITSM system is not going to be very helpful, because then you're just going to have noise at that level as well. So what we really need is the ability to triage or associate some number of alerts from the monitoring systems in an intelligent way into a smaller, more consolidated number of incidents on the ITSM side. And this is something that we also saw as a popular response in our pain point question from our survey, where we see here, about 28% of our respondents were saying that a lack of integration between the IT ops tools and the ITSM tools is something that's top of mind for their IT department. And these things ultimately result in, man hours or person hours that doesn't need to be spent there. So it's really a reduction in employee productivity. So what we really want is the ability to easily associate alerts to incidents, and be able to manage that workflow so that when someone from the ITSM side resolves that incident, typically all that noise or all that information from the monitoring systems is kind of still left around. But since our integrations are all bidirectional, that's something that is fairly unique, we're able to go back to each of those monitoring systems and update all those alerts so that they reflect that the incident actually has been resolved. So that'll be our third demo that we'll jump back into. So we'll take off from where Justin left off on the alert section, so searching for a string pattern, trying to find a group of alerts that may represent a single problem, and then showing how Savision IQ can correlate those to an incident and what workflow is executed from there. So back to you, Justin.
Yep, so you should see my alerts pane again. I think for some of you that did catch it in the beginning, let me just clear this out so I have the maximum amount. Obviously, you can thin down and go through the alerts and pick your top 10. In fact, this would be probably one that you'd pick up in the morning. So critical alerts in the last 24 hours. Let's grab those ones. I have a couple of dummy alerts and I have a couple of original alerts. Let's assume that these are all really interesting for a specific service, or these two relate to an incident that this morning. So as we mentioned earlier, you could group them up and automatically close them down if it's a known solution. You can get or a known problem that you guys just have to do the process behind it. But alternatively, you can raise these up. I'll just move my webinar. You can raise these up as an incident to a hooked up system that you have. So ServiceNow is the one I have hooked to mine, but if you had Eventi Heat or other ones attached, you can raise it, and we pull the required fields from the system, allow you to fill those in, so you can fill in a ticket, raise the ticket, give it a short description. These alerts need a database admin to look at them, for example, or whatever your systems are in there. Free fields. I'm not very good at spelling, so I'll get spell checker to do it. The assignment, which is mandatory, so I'll pick a poor volunteer for it. I can place it against another component or another CI that is available to me. That's anything within the system. And there is an option in here. So IQ does a very good, you noticed it, that we can close down the alerts. So we push out to the monitoring platforms that are connected to us and change the statuses. That can be a group status change. So that's very handy for a lot of our operations manager customers already. But looking at it from the other way, when we create the incident, we can actually tag the alerts against them. So the upstream, downstream flow is then controlled simply by this button here. I fire off a create. That system, then IQ then goes to ServiceNow, the system, and creates the incident for me in the system that it's associated. Those incidents then become available as incidents here. So you get to track and see them as well. You get to read, obviously, the data and the properties about it. And again, you'll be pushed to ServiceNow or Heat or whatever you've got with it to do the interaction with it. Once it's closed down, IQ will pick up that they've disappeared from here and close down the alerts as I've got that box ticked. So we then close down the alerts associated with the ticket. So we're fully controlling that one in there. I think that covered that scenario as far as I remember with that one. So again, the incidents control level is available. I could pop over to ServiceNow when I needed to do it and get those running. I also have the ability to see those incidents grouped up against objects, which we're going to talk about very shortly. So I'll leave you with this snippet before I hand it back over to Rob. If you do group your alerts or your computers and components together, you have a way to visualize those within IQ, which roll them up into a board, as we refer to them. So this is where we get a bit of control. Relating to the incidents, you have the ability to actually see the number of incidents available against the groups or the components that are raising it, versus, of course, the alerts. So you can still see the numbers of alerts that are targeting a computer, or the number of incidents that you've raised to them, or another incidents that are being raised to the ticket desk system. I'll stop there and hand that back over to Rob.
Thanks, Justin. If you could just jump back to the IQ page on the save searches, I'll just kind of finish that alert discussion with one more thing, a little kind of tidbit in terms of the future stuff where we're headed. So I mean, Justin has shown, the ability to search for some alerts, find some number of alerts that would represent a problem in the environment, and create a single incident from those set of alerts, so that the help desk side can look at it from a problem perspective instead of a bunch of alerts. And while that's nice, it's we have a nice manual way to solve this problem. But where we're headed, so you can see where save searches also fits into this is, Justin saved one of his searches. What we'll be able to do is automatically create incidents based on these save searches. So these save searches become kind of active rules that are running in the background, looking for things that match the criteria, and then automatically generating an incident, updating, let's say, ServiceNow as the connected ITSM system, and keeping track of that actively, so that as the save search finds different sets of alerts or components that match, the ServiceNow ticket is constantly updated, so it's a live representation of what's going on in the monitoring infrastructure. And then when the issue is resolved, IQ can take care and make sure that all the associated pieces are cleaned up and updated appropriately, so that if somebody looks at the alert in the monitoring system, they can see that the issue has already been resolved without having to be communicated in some other way internally through the organization. So I just wanted to kind of throw that in there as where we're moving in terms of this workflow becoming automatic, and something that's quite a bit more powerful. Go ahead, Justin.
Yeah. No, just to add to that, so what I did was I generated, we'll come back to the next one, I generated a search for domain controllers, which then obviously incorporates the alerts and the incidents. We'll come back and check on that as soon as that's caught up, so that you guys can see that.
Yeah, so the last demo scenario that I want to touch on is sharing these business insights within the organization. So we feel it's pretty great that you can bring all this information in, easily search, access all this information, have some workflows into your ITSM side of the world. But at a certain point, you need to be able to get information or insights out of this solution and share it with other key stakeholders in the organization. So Justin started to show the boards view, and boards is the concept that we use for structuring data. So for instance, a board could represent a department, a single person's ownership of certain components. It could represent application or service, an office location. So it's a way that you can structure things into logical groupings of components or servers, and then just track those boards. So this could be up on a big screen or published internally, so that at a glance you can take a look and see how applications are performing, services are performing, and this can include information from all those connected systems, or through our RESTful API. If you have homegrown tools or other third-party tools that we don't support, you can bring all that information in and have a single operational view that shows you the health of those applications or services. So we'll get into that in a minute. Again, some of the metrics that kind of reinforce this scenario, a third of organizations have very limited visibility across data in their systems. Again, mostly this information is all siloed. When we look at the troubleshooting process, it's really down to domain experts reporting data separately. So again, if you have 5 silos of information, which is kind of on the low end, you're typically going to 5 different teams or 5 different domain experts to get information about an issue or how to solve an issue. And of course, that bogs the process down, especially as you start to get conflict. So, the more silos or isolated teams that you have, the more opportunity there is for conflict where the data doesn't match up, right? Where the network team may say, no, everything from SolarWinds looks healthy, but, something in System Center is complaining, and we have mismatched data here. So we need a way to have all this information available in a common way so that we can make reliable decisions. So what we need to be able to do is to create business value dashboards that are personalized for my organization and have a real-time way for me to share this with other people in the organization without being bogged down on the details of each system. So, if I keep with the simple example of 5 silos or 5 different teams in my IT department, if I wanted to share information about a dashboard that spanned these silos, typically I have to go into each of those tools, figure out how their permission systems work, add that user in there and fine tune at an object level what can that person access and more importantly, what can they not access. And that can be enough of an obstacle that people just don't bother, and it becomes conversational or manipulation of data into different reports that change over time, and there's no consistent way to look at that data. So the next demo will show how we can create these personalized dashboards and how how Savision IQ can make that sharing or communication process much easier.
Yeah, I think that's my cue here to make magic go. So just to relate a little bit to what Rob does, I do it on a lot of sessions we do with customers, a lot of trainings that we do with our other solution. I come across that scenario that Rob was highlighting quite a lot, even though you might not feel that happens to you. It is happening, just maybe to different people within the company. And I'd like to highlight one thing that I've learned from there is that business owners of their services do know what's in their systems. What they don't know is how to access your system. SCOM is your domain, or your monitoring platforms are your domain. SolarWinds are your domain. And historically, what we see a lot of companies do is that they make it really hard or make it really difficult for that conversation to happen, where a service owner can just go in and get the information from SolarWinds that's important to his application, or the service from Operations Manager. He has to get reports, and we do a lot of reporting with our other solution, and we find a lot of the conversations graduate to the point where one tool starts showing that it's really easy to use, in particular Operations Manager because of our other product live apps, and those customers want more data in there. The customers being the users, not actually the administrators from Operations Manager themselves, because all the tool's doing is giving you easy access to it. IQ goes a step further. So as you noticed, I mean, just before we swept over, I typed in the word domain controller. I can type in any word here, any Google search word that I want, and it will automatically go through all the systems. I don't have to be a genius in all the systems. I don't have to know all the technical raw properties from that system, all the fields that are there. I can quite literally just write in here, show me SQL and let's say 2000 and I don't even know if I've got that, 2012, let's say, and I will go and find specifically that. Or I can target a specific name of a computer, something I would know that's set up in my system because I've got that list. What I'm trying to point out here is this tool you can actually give to your service owners, and they can go and Google search all of the monitoring platforms in one go to find, the network components alongside the servers without having to actually understand your system. That's the key point of it. So once they've found the objects that they want, simply adding it to a board is very simple. So let's say I want this Exchange server to go and be added to my Exchange system because I'm responsible for that. So there's a pin down here that allows me to pin that device to a board that I have created already. So if I could spell the word, it would be even better. Exchange. So I have a few boards with Exchange in it. None of those look like the one I'm really interested in. So let me go and create my own Exchange team board. And quite simply, I can put on a new board, create, and make it available. So my items get pinned. So what you're going to see in a couple of minutes is over here, a board for Exchange appears. There it is, one pin item, and we're going to wait for the health check to happen against the underlying system, and then this will change. In the meantime, I can go and add more objects to it. So I can go back to my search, and I can say, right, so there are other objects that Exchange needs, for example. Here's a computer I forgot to add. Okay, so that computer needs to be added there. Here are a bunch of mailboxes. Oh, that's it's probably very important to my system. Let's add a multitude of these components in one go, just by simply selecting all of them, adding them to the board I created seconds ago. Exchange. Oh, that hasn't rolled in yet, so I'm going to have to wait for that one. Let's add it. Oh, no, there it is. I'm just blind. So now I've pinned those components onto the board as well. And already they're starting to roll up. So you can start seeing that we're actually getting that data pretty fast. So users of the system, non-IT people who are not used to your systems, can actually have a really fast experience to get the data that they're interested in. Here's a board. Here are the boards that are in it. There are multiple ways to show the board, so you can actually flip it over into a very easy, put it on my screen, put it on my phone sort of approach. By default, everything that's red moves to the top, so we always bring that to attention to people. They get to see the number of alerts that are generated by the objects that are placed on here, or any incidents that are attached to it. And of course, they can drill down into what IQ knows about the system, so the properties or data around it, or a step further into the related system that comes from through this button. So they could go to SolarWinds or SCOM or the data that they're looking for. Now, that's simply quite easily how you can group your data. You can group it any way you want. So here's a few suggestions. A lot of people like to look at computers at their level, like to separate out network components, because that's the silo approach of it. Oh, you'll just see that my Exchange is now rolling up to red. It's catching up. ASW components, that could be how people do approach it, but a lot of people that we're working with are starting to put them into services that they do. So here's a payroll service, here's the SharePoint service. You could further split it out, so geographically where SharePoint components are, where they are located in the world, so Ottawa branch components, however you want them there. Now, what you can also, which I think I've done here, so just to show that to you, you can also group a board against another board. So you have the ability to group up multiple components. So you could do a head office and then different floors, or a head office and different services, or a data center and different racks, however you want to do it. Keep in mind, you can grab objects from any monitoring device together. So really the sky's the limit with how you group the components. Sharing it is quite as simple as well. So if you want people to have access to this, it's as simple as giving them the URL and granting them access to a board. Now, access to a board, I'll flip it out of the NOC version. I can place it in here and then give the ability to share. And as Rob was mentioning, this is where a lot of people struggle on their reports, especially our customers when we talk about live maps and SCOM. We notice this quite a lot as well. We can very easily give them access to Operations Manager dashboards through our live maps front end. We can give you the exact same experience through IQ. In fact, it's even faster and easier through IQ. But those users had to go to other silos and get their system set up so they could look into the data. With IQ, we're doing that already through the connectors, so they're getting access to data from the systems without having to log in. And quite simply, when you share a board, all you have to do is set up a user here, and to do that, head to the administration part, head into roles, set up a role, and within the roles you can apply people to a role fashion in here. So it's quite easily just searching your AD for any particular accounts or groups that you want to access to a specific role. Once they're available, you can say, right, these people now become part of this role. Once they're in the board role, or in the role that you choose, head to the board, share the board with that specific group. So I'll do it for my demo group. And that group then gets the ability to do stuff with the board. So if they go to this web page, they will get to see any boards that you've shared with them. They'll have the ability to drill down to them. And you can actually, in the back end, give them abilities on their role levels. So let me show you demo. Abilities on their role levels to do stuff with the component itself. So they can either edit the dashboard or share the dashboard further for themselves, or delete the dashboard. That's possible as well. I think I covered how to group the dashboards up, how to share them, and how to get them out. It's as simple as a simple web page and then picking who gets to see what. Back to you, Rob.
Well, the last thing I'd kind of point out while we're in this area is if you do drill into payroll service, for those of you who may be familiar with Live Maps, our legacy product, we do a lot of work around business service modeling. And by having the ability to pin a board within another board, we have the ability to kind of provide a similar experience where when you drill into a service, we can have different perspectives or different slices of that service. And with IQ, this can be anything. So you could have a security perspective in here, a group of just your web farm, a group of your SharePoint farm, external dependencies. Everything can kind of be contained as a nested board here. And then you have a consolidated list of all your alerts and everything related to that service in one place. And this becomes quite interesting too when you think about the incident workflows that I mentioned earlier. now you have the ability to automate an incident workflow based on the service. So I'm only looking at the alerts for the service, and I can have a single incident in ITSM that represents any issues with that service. And the last, I guess the other thing we haven't shown visually is if you go back to the board view, there's also a heat map view that we haven't shown that does give you a bit more information for people who are looking for more. So if you click the knock toggle just beside that, Justin, we'll switch into the heat map mode to where you can see if you want that more detailed view in terms of something is red, well, how many things in that are red? You get an idea here as to what the things inside that board look like.
Probably good to mention here, don't worry, this headquarters is not actually Savision's headquarters. It does look like it's pretty much in the deep side of it compared to Ottawa, where Rob is located right now, which is why he's very happy to join in on this webinar. It looks like over here we're going to have to go and put out some fires by the looks of it. But at least now we're getting visualizations on that. Yeah.
Okay, jump back to the deck. We have one more survey question here. So we've shown you a few features. We'd just like to ask which one you would rate as most important based on what you've seen. So A is kind of the API. So what, you know, homegrown or third-party tools, is that really important for you to be able to fiddle or experiment with our API to insert and extract other data sources? Is the search kind of the top thing that you would see? So being able to just jump in there and have a Google-like experience across all your IT data, that workflow that we mentioned, the alert to incident workflow, or finally what we just talked about, what Justin was just showing, which was the sharing of these dashboards within the organization. Okay, thanks for that. So so now just a wrap up. So we have a bit of time left for Q&A, so hopefully there are some questions. I do have a few notes here on a wrap up. So we've been running Savision IQ through a good chunk of the summer as a beta program. I hope perhaps some of the attendees on here were a part of that program. We would like to offer for everyone here as well an early bird offer of Savision IQ. So we just launched or announced version 2 of Savision IQ at Microsoft Ignite last month, or I guess now 2 months ago, now that we're in November. It was the end of September that we announced Savision IQ. We license per integration. So Justin, if you recall, at the very beginning of the presentation was showing how you create an integration, so to a SCOM management group or to a SolarWinds instance or to an AWS subscription. Each of those connections is an integration. We do have a special offer at $5,500 US or 5,000 euros per integration on a subscription basis. This offer is only valid till the end of this calendar year, and the price will go up. So we'd love to see you guys try out an evaluation and take advantage of this early bird offer if you feel that we're addressing some pain points that you're currently experiencing. Go to savisioniq.com, get more information about the product or sign up for a free eval. And that's all I have on the product. So let's jump into any questions that there might be. So as Justin mentioned, please use the question section and we'll answer anything that you guys have.
Yeah, so Rob, we've got a couple coming in. I'm going to group up a couple of people's questions because they're all similar. So this is one that we get a lot when we were doing the beta as well, and when we do demo the product individually to customers. So I'm glad people have asked this one. So the question is, how do we interact with other systems, like other ITSM tools? Easy Vista is someone's mentioned here, VMware, Wrapup, or potentially other homegrown tools with IQ.
Yeah, so great question. So we have two forms of integration, a light and a heavy. So the light integration is through our RESTful API. So using that RESTful API, you can retrieve or insert or update data in our backend. So for example, if you wanted to have visibility into incidents from another ITSM system besides the two that we support, ServiceNow and Ivanti, you could use that RESTful API to insert data from that system, and then the search experience would show those incidents, those alerts, those components, kind of all that data could be manipulated through that RESTful API. That's the light experience. The heavy experience is actually building an integration. So the integrations that we build within IQ and deliver with the product are based on a plug-in model that has an interface that's exposed that in theory anybody could also build. Now we're getting, I mentioned it is heavy, so you're getting into more kind of developer level expertise required to do this. It would be a C# interface typically. But that would allow you to build a very functional integration, and it's something that we are always available to assist and help with, such that it would behave just as if it were built into the product. So the advantages that you get with a heavy integration over a light integration are things like if you wanted to have the ability to resolve alerts or to have that incident workflow or actions in general, that's something that you would need to use the heavy integration, as the light integration is just a way to manipulate or insert data. So those are the two ways that we provide to extend the coverage of IQ to other systems. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, so it did open up another question, obviously, which is in connection with the licensing for that, because obviously we license per connector. So how does the light integration get licensed?
So currently, if you have an active license, the RESTful API is open. So as long as you have a valid license of some sort, you're kind of free, unfettered access to the API to insert and manipulate data.
And obviously on the heavy connections at the moment, we will be helping people, but that would be something to probably talk to us directly about, depending on how heavy you want the connection to be and what it needs to integrate to, I assume, to answer the opposite side of that question. Yeah. We have another question, is this an on-prem or a hosted solution?
Yeah, another question we hear a lot. So currently it's delivered as an on-prem solution. I will add that it's been designed to be used as a hosted or eventually as a SaaS service. So it's completely web-based. All the communication protocols between the components are all web-based. So you know, this can run in Azure or AWS. The typical setup would be storage and front end are delivered out of, let's say, AWS or Azure. And then the agents are running on-prem, collecting data and sending it into that hosted instance. So you do have the flexibility of doing both. However, the Savision IQ is not offered today as a provisioned software as a service where you can just kind of sign up, click, and have everything provisioned. It would be something that you would need to manage in your public cloud offering today. But that is something based on demand that we will be kind of expanding the deployment options into.
And I think that covers the questions from this side.
I see another one that just came in here about bidirectional. So all of our integrations are bidirectional, the ones that we provide. So bidirectional meaning that you can go back to the source system, you can resolve an alert, you can create the incident, you can update an incident. Those kinds of things are all supported through our integrations. If you wanted that functionality yourself for a custom data source, if that's what the question is getting at, then a heavy integration will be required using that integration API that I mentioned.
So the only thing that's left to do is to thank everyone for their attendance. Thank you very much. And if you are interested in getting a hold of the evaluation version or connecting with us, please feel free to reach out to us. I believe you will be forwarded to a web page at the end of this session. If not, please contact us through the mailings. And again, this webinar will be available online for you guys to share if needed internally. Thank you. Thank you very much, Rob.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Till next. Bye-bye.